Firstly, thank you for Russ for giving a small startup in San Mateo the opportunity to present a few slides. So Russ asked me to give a personal view on what I felt there may be 3 opportunities for people in our marketplace for next year. So I shall go and let's have a look. 3 things we think about very hard at Oodle is what social media means to people in the classified businesses. So that's small and medium-sized businesses. We have a global deal with Facebook to power their marketplace platform. And their marketplace platform is unique in the sense that it's the only application on Facebook which everybody can access. All the other applications on Facebook are ones that you share with other people, and that gives us some huge advantages in terms of surfacing classified ads to people who want to engage with it on Facebook. In terms of next year, we can hopefully see businesses taking Facebook very seriously, and the way we try and visualize it is trying to get businesses to see Facebook as LinkedIn, but with their customers. So it's not about necessarily just sending out listings and bombarding them with advertising. It's about how they engage and converse with people to manage their reputations online, because small businesses typically manage off word of mouth, and we see Facebook Marketplace as word of mouth turbocharged if you get it right. So there's lots of people doing it badly, but we can see hopefully the ground roots or grassroots of people doing it well. And if you're interested in the US, we've just launched a product called Oodle Pro, which leverages our relationship with Facebook, relationship with Twitter and MySpace, and allows currently real estate agents to get the best out of social media. That's one trend. The second one is one of the things which I think has held classifieds back is the fact that it's anonymous. There are anonymous marketplaces. You don't know who you're buying from, you don't know who you're selling to. So the whole area of reputation management is going to become increasingly important. And you can see the first stages of that with people commenting on people like Quip and Yelp, etc. But one of the issues that small businesses have is who's talking about me, where are they talking about me, and what are they saying? And if you haven't checked out this product, it's from a company called MarchX in the US. You'd have a look at it. As a small business, it tracks every single mention of you, every single review of your business in one dashboard and allows you to manage what's going on. It also tracks what people are saying about your competitors. So if you're a small business on a high street in San Mateo, and there's another guy who seems to be doing better business than you can actually see what people are searching for and what might be on his menu, which is doing a better job than you. And again, one of the things which frustrates small businesses is the fact that their data is incorrectly stored on sites. And again, this scours the web, shows where your listings are presented, and with one click of a button, you can update your content across lots of different sites. So it's not something we're doing, but it's part of, I think, the sort of services you'll see offered to small businesses, which go beyond simple pay-per-click and pay-per-lead advertising, but allows them to manage themselves more effectively and market themselves. Anybody who's interested in local can't have not seen all the activity that's going on in the US in the local scene. You can get overwhelmed with this. I think my takeout on it is there's 2 things going to happen with content which haven't happened very well in the past. It's going to be geotagged, and it's going to be time sensitive. And I think there's going to be huge opportunities for people to leverage the fact that data is going to be geography and time sensitive specific. And in terms of local news, there's lots of activity in the US with people aggregating local content and displaying it real time on maps so people can get a sense of what's happening around them. That's really it. Anyone interested in classifieds and getting distribution through Facebook and AOL and Thomson Local, then please find me afterwards and have a conversation with me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm really pleased to be here and keen to contribute today. So I just want to a little bit of guidance on what we wanted to talk through, which was just to kind of share a perspective on where we thought the business was moving from a very traditional sort of directory player perspective. The place to start is I think with the customer. So before we kind of get into talking about trends, who are the winners, what does the landscape look like for 2010, I wanted to start by talking about starting with the customer. So, I mean, what I'm just showing you here is a little bit of insight. It's something we do on a fairly frequent basis. This is spending about half a day with a number of businesses, and what you see reflected here is something of a kind of persona. This one we chose to kind of label the toe dipper, and it's quite interesting in the sense that this is a guy who's in the antique business. He's been around for 15, 20 years, and he's confused. And the point about kind of labeling him toe dipper is that I think it's very difficult for anyone to really be in a position to provide all of the products and services that these SMEs need. And the toe dipper is a behavior set that we'd identified that was very much about people who wanted to dip in and try things. And it's resonant of a small business that is basically scratching their head, looking slightly confused, and worried about the sort of continuity of revenue and customer volume for their business. Another one is one we identified, which was called the Crazy Fool. And here she is, Corinne, 28. She's a yoga instructor, and she's not atypical of early startup businesses. So, one of the other interesting things that we all grapple with in this marketplace is the structural dynamics of the SME marketplace, where you see 400, 500,000 businesses starting every year, a similar number going bust. And the Crazy Fool side of this is, I'm early doors, I'm out there, I'm trying to create a business for myself. Please help me market myself. How do I do that? I don't know how to do it, but I'm willing to try. And to pick up on what our colleague earlier was just saying, social media is obviously a big aspect of the way in which she's thinking about how she grows her business, and it's incredibly important. So I thought I'd kind of start there, because I think one of the things that we are sort of struggling with is how to meet this customer need. How do you do that when we're seeing such a confused marketplace for the SME? And just to illustrate how that how it is confusing is, I think search behaviors have really changed very, very dramatically. So, with a business that's got a kind of, 4-decade heritage that Yell has, with the book Yellow Pages, with Yell.com, you wind the clock back 20 years, and for most small businesses, the book really was a principal source of business for these people. Obviously, with the growth of the internet, the growth of social media, the growth of mobile, the search behavior sets have fundamentally changed. And if you're a small business, that's quite a daunting thing to come to terms with. Who do you go to? How do you actually carve yourself a path forward? That's one thing that we've obviously observed. The other thing is that, and I think this is a really strong trend that, you could say, well, we've seen this trend for many, many years, but I think we're making small advances here, and pretty piecemeal. We need to take some bigger steps forward, and this one is about advertisers wanting more transparent outcomes. And so you see the world of the printed book here, fixed space, fixed time, it has a half-life, its value diminishes the day it's published. No guarantees, pretty limited ROI in terms of the transparency of it. Even if you looked at the the online directory stuff, Yellow Pages, again, very similar picture in terms of fixed space and time. Even our hosts here today on the kind of CPC side of things, definitely much more flexible and transparent, variable space, variable time, variable price, flex to capacity, semi-transparent ROI. And what do I mean by that? I'll come on and talk about that. Because actually, where we think this is really going to move much, much faster than it's moving at the moment is into the kind of cost per lead space. So, we must have done something like about 100,000 advertisers where we've put, metered trackable numbers in their advertising. And I think, that's what we're going to see now, which is, increasingly the phone calls, appearing in the CPC space, driving calls and leads, putting guarantees around what that might deliver. Ditto, putting it into the online directory space where, something that wasn't very variable can become pretty variable. Again, calls to lead, you can flex it to capacity, we can put some guarantees around it, it's much more transparent. We can even do it with the book. And so I think that's one, really, really important, growing development that you're going to see increasingly coming forward. So, next thing is, just sources of leads for SMEs are now more fragmented. So if you think back to what I was showing at the outset with our friend the Toe Dipper or our friend the Crazy Fool, how do they get across this? It's a pretty difficult thing for them to do. So, I don't think any of them can kind of look at it and say, well, something in the social media space is definitely for me. Something in the reviews side of it is definitely for me. That's the thing that's going to generate the fuel that's going to drive my business. The reality that most of these people are coming to terms with is that they need, broad representation. They are pretty time poor in achieving that broad representation, and that's where we as a business, see pretty fundamental opportunities in terms of leveraging the relationship that we have, with somewhere between 400 and 500,000 of these businesses in the UK. And so I suppose, just giving a bit of a sort of perspective on it from the Yale perspective. People 10, 20 years ago were coming to us for phone numbers. Actually, more and more of the content you find, in our online property or in our mobile property is around vertical content and business information, i.e. more than the name, the address, the telephone number, as we seek to participate in that broader set of search behaviors that we've observed. The other thing that we are seeing a lot about is, instead of just selling products, you're out there selling effectively what was content, space, color, graphical representation of the business in the book. Increasingly, our business is about what we call performance and presence. In other words, we can generate you leads for your business with those metered numbers across any number of media. The presence side of it is a really important point, actually. So we do something on a quarterly basis. We do like a census with about 10,000 businesses. And we've been doing it for quite some time now, and it's an incredibly rich source of data because it's really getting to the heart of how these people think about media, how they think about the way they should be trying to grow their businesses. And this is the point about kind of word of mouth, because if you ask these people, what's the most important source of business for me, word of mouth will consistently be at the top, and it will outstrip any other form of media, be that Google, be it Yale, be it anything that's out there. One of our perspectives on it is that actually the new word of mouth is internet, and the best expression of that probably is social media. And so increasingly what we're doing for these small businesses is helping them think about how they need to present themselves, not just in printed media, but help them think about how they present themselves online, and increasingly in a very broad ecology online, whether that be in the online directory, through their website, or in terms of how they manage their profile in the social media or mobile space. The other trend is obviously we're moving a little bit away from being publisher, and I suppose we're emerging as something more of a kind of marketing services packager. One of the strange things that I observed when I came to the Yale business was, obviously, to be transparent about it, a very sales-led culture, quite interesting. But when you look at how Yale is deployed across the globe, we find, something like 1,600 people in the business who are basically doing, service bureau type stuff, which, 10, 15 years ago meant taking paper collateral, doing interesting creative things with paper and printed media. More and more, we have people who are taking film cameras out and shooting videos of small businesses. Or we have people who are taking receipt of memory sticks from small businesses that have got photographs, and we're uploading those photographs, helping them build their websites, helping them profile themselves online, creating Facebook pages for small businesses. And in that respect, one of the things that we've been doing is looking at the asset base and saying, how can we turn that asset base to be of greater benefit to our customers? And one of the ways in which we can do that, and it's one of the difficulties that everybody I think faces with the sort of small business side of the marketplace in which we're operating, is content capture. How do you capture that content in a cost-efficient way? How do you process that content, and how do you start to leverage that content for the small business? I haven't got a demo of it here, but most of our guys who are out in the field in the sales force now carry iPhones. we've built a phenomenal number of applications for the iPhone that are all around content capture with the small business. We've even looked at devices like the docking device you saw on the sat-nav system that help us use the iPhone better for camera purposes. In some instances, we will actually be sending cameras to the small business, taking their pictures, giving them a prepaid Jiffy bag, sending it back in, because what we've realized is that these businesses are grappling in time and in production effort to actually get themselves properly profiled. And that's one of the major roles that we think we can play. And, and to the gentleman who was talking from Enders earlier about the data quality issues, absolutely agree. And we think we can turn the assets of our business to tackle that challenge, and make it a richer search experience for the consumer and give those businesses a better opportunity to profile themselves. The last thing I was going to talk about was obviously, annual sales, moving to much more of a kind of continuous contact model. I think a lot of the companies that we deal with in the classified sector, all of them have had the experience where, they get that kind of annual drive-by event, the gun to the head, the book's going to publish, you have to be in it. It's slightly different in the local press space. That, in our perspective, from a marketing perspective, isn't very consistent with, building the, a collaborative dialogue with those businesses. And so, one of the things we're doing is moving the business towards much more of a sort of continuous contact model, where we are bringing, more of those contacts are actually service contacts, service bureau, creative people, talking to those small businesses. We're doing this with, the alliance we have with our colleagues at Google, providing a fully managed search marketing service. I'm sat in the call center last week with a bunch of agents who are phoning these people, 6, 8 weeks in, 13, 15 weeks in to their search marketing campaigns that we fully manage for them, and just having a chat with them about what they're seeing as a result of it. Talking to them about clicks, talking to them about calls, talking to them about whether they think the campaign structure and the creative used is adequately reflecting their business. So, I think that's important, as a, something that we could all think about and work a bit harder on over the course of 2010. It's really just helping these people get their content online, helping them profile themselves as a vehicle and a path for, delivering a better outcome for those businesses, which is ultimately what we're all about. Again, go right back to the start. It starts with our friends. Crazy Fool and Toe Dip are just 2 examples. That's about it from me. Thank you very much.
So for those who hadn't spotted it, I'm not English, I'm Dutch. So if you have any insults, don't hesitate to throw them at me, and I'll try to answer them. As Russell said, I don't fundamentally believe in the clicks alone model. It was interesting to see the Yale slide where actually you indicate that that only clicks only give sort of a semi-transparent view of the world. When we went online with Kelly Search, we went from a book to an online directory, and we thought this is fantastic because all of a sudden our customers can see what the usage is. But actually what we found out is all that they can see is the number of clicks that they get to a profile page or to a listing. That doesn't tell you anything, and that doesn't tell them anything even worse about what the quality of that click is. So do they actually get any business out of that click? Because if you don't know that, it is completely immaterial as to whether you get 5 clicks or 500 clicks. You can't tell what gives you the right return on investment. So we were lucky enough to acquire a business about 1.5 years ago called Approved Index, who developed a model that is quite common in the consumer space, but you don't see an awful lot of in the B2B space yet, and that's what I'd like to talk to you briefly about today. A little bit of background. This is the portfolio that I run. There are a number of directories in there: Caterer, Camps, Kelly Search, and Farmers Weekly. Then there is a data product in there called Compass, and then our latest acquisition is Approved Index, and that's the focus for today. The business model for Approved Index is request for quotes, and the beauty of that is, other than what we see with Yale, that we see with Kelly Search, traditionally directories are very much advertiser driven. We're really focusing completely on making the experience work for the advertiser, and the moment that you start to worry too much about the user, all your reps go, oh my God, we don't want that, because what does that mean for the advertiser? So Approved Index started from a completely different base, and they said, why don't we put the user central, and let's see what we can do for the user, bit what Google did. I think they probably took the lead from you guys. And then said, you know, how can we work something that's good for the user and then sell that on to the advertiser? So what do we need to do for a user? We need to attract users, we need to interact with them, then we need to verify that they're actually the right users for the audience that we want to sell on to, because otherwise we shouldn't pass that data on. And then we have to match that user to the right advertiser so that both sides get the right experience. You do something that is optimized for your advertiser, you do something that's optimized for your user. And I'll rattle through that. The example I use is a user, a company that is looking for a new website. And obviously, you know, once you start searching, you have a real intent and you've got sort of a sense of urgency around it. So I need a website and I need it now. So I'm going to look for website designers. Then we try to optimize ourselves in two ways. Obviously, the keyword campaigns. So we're lucky to be spending an awful lot of money with Google, which is good. That means that the business is good. And then we obviously try to also do it the other way via organic results. So there's a lot of focus on search engine optimization. That is the way that we bring those users in. And the proposition to the user is, you know, we are going to take the pain away from you, from having to go to 4 or 5 different companies, tell them your story time and time again. We can do that for you once. If you give us your information, we pass that on, and actually we match it to the best suppliers that we can find for you. So this is what we then ask the user. Give us your profile once. You know, what are you looking for? When are you looking for it? How much are you willing to spend? Who are you? All that sort of information we try to harness from the users. Then we do a very, very important step, and I think that is where Approved Index has got quite a unique approach to a lot of the other players in the market. Filling out a form with an intent is one thing, but we found out that actually if you pass those forms then almost blind, or even if you look at it in an automated way, on to suppliers, there is still an issue, because some of them end up being Mickey Mouse. There's a lot of tire kickers. There's a lot of other competitors that try to get some quotes from other people. So what we do is we call the user and we have a conversation with that user. So there is a 3, 4, 5 minute conversation with everyone who filled out that quotes form. It's not until we've had that conversation, in that conversation we harness more information. If we then believe it's right, we pass the lead on. So there's a real quality check that goes on, really good understanding of the user needs before we pass it on to the advertiser. And then we match it. So, you know, we have this guy or this girl who is looking for a website. We promise him that he'll get free quotes, and we match it to 5 companies in that space that fit the criteria that we've harnessed from the user. And then last but not least, because that's where we start making the money, we then pass that information on to a maximum of 5 advertisers, because we believe 4 to 5 advertisers. We believe that otherwise the user experience can be quite dramatic. You know, you don't want to be called by 20 potential suppliers. So we limit that, which also create a good pressure on the price point. And then we notify our suppliers that there is a fresh lead for them, and then it's a matter for them to get onto that as quickly as possible and to make sure that they convert that into business. So we don't promise or guarantee business. We just say these are absolutely sales-ready leads for you, and then obviously you have to make sure that you close it with your price points, with your sales skills, etc., etc. So that is the proposition that we have, and we believe that by doing this, we can actually add an awful lot of value to the users of Google and other search engines, and by adding that value, we can get more money out of that than just passing on clicks to suppliers. So that's the story of Approved Index.
I penned a couple of questions, which I thought I'd throw out there and see what your thoughts are, and then we'll take some questions from the audience, obviously. So, in terms of local, where do we think that the trends are going to be? Is local going to be, you know, very social. Is hyperlocal going to be important? How important is local in the overall context of your business for next year? How much do your users want it? How much do your advertisers want it? Even if you are a local business, how much more important is it going to be going forward next year? Want to start, Philip? Whoa, Duncan?
As I mentioned earlier, the fact that, and I think Google's presentations encapsulated it very well, where you are is going to be increasingly very important to the applications and products which people like yourselves and us need to be thinking about. So the fact that more content is going to be geolocated, the fact that more content is going to be time sensitive, I think is only going to make local offers and products ever more appealing to the person searching for them, because what they can find is going to be more relevant. And I think the targeting opportunities that presents people in classified businesses, which is inherently local and inherently social, because most classified transactions result in you meeting someone, I think is only going to show that there's going to be huge growth in what we do.
But my question is, can publishers, can businesses make money off local? So I know users want it, the demand is stronger than ever. Where's the money?
I think our regional newspapers are going to have to go through what the guys in the US went through with Craigslist, where someone enters the marketplace with completely different motives to the incumbents. Most people who run successful blogs like the Ventnor blog on the Isle of Wight, or a site called Pots and Pans in Stoke, do it for completely different motives other than making money.
Yeah.
Their sites are on WordPress, they cost about £50. They do it for the love of it. And one of the conundrums that publishers have is, how do you compete with someone who actually doesn't want to compete with you and doesn't have commercial imperatives? And that's really what happened with Craigslist in the States.
Yeah.
They could make a lot more money. They're now arguing with eBay about the fact that they didn't make more money, but it changes the dynamics completely. So I think whether businesses make money in the local space is going to depend a lot on what their motivations are. And that's a completely different scenario to the one we dealt with up to now.
Philip?
Look, I think it's going to continue to be hugely important, and we're going to give you a couple of illustrations of it. We have a small but rapidly growing ad network business where the partner publishers, and there are about 300 of them on the network at the moment, are invariably very small, vertically focused, very geo-targeted publisher sites who perhaps have been off the radar screens in terms of their ability to participate in a broader ad network. I mean, we did some research recently, and we found that there are many small advertisers who would love to spend more time and more money investing in display advertising on an ad network, but invariably most of the options available to them are at a minimum spend level that is way outside of the sort of budget that they can countenance. And so one of the opportunities we've seen is to totally lower the barrier to entry for the small advertiser and the small publisher to participate in very local, very vertically focused, very geo-targeted traffic. On the mobile side as well, I don't know how many people in the room have used Yell Mobile. We've had an enormous growth in traffic, very similar to what Hugo Barra was showing earlier in terms of the growth of the iPhone. Very successful application, thousands of downloads, and it's an increasingly important proportion of our traffic. We continue to invest in it, and I think that aspect will continue to grow. Obviously, it's a challenge from the perspective of the advertiser. How do I think about profiling myself in the mobile world? At the moment, we don't see the need to present it to them in a way which is asking them to buy it as a discrete placement of their advertising. Perhaps that will come, but right now, that's something that they get as part of their relationship with Yell. And obviously, that's something we're keen to grow.
Are you just on that track before I get to you, Jordan? You're seeing vastly different behaviours from mobile Yell users than you are naturally from your website, and obviously from the book. But
yeah, I think
does it vary?
It does vary, and I think one of the things that we observed is if you look at where some of the very large vertical classified sectors have moved over the last sort of 10 years, it's fair to say that whether it's in insurance or recruitment or motoring, some of those sectors, some of those have come out of Yellow Pages and Yell.com advertising and into some of those big vertical destination sites. one of the things we've observed with mobile is that, you know, traffic for some of those areas, I mean, restaurants would be obviously one, you know, and some of those other things that, you know, have maybe moved to, you know, the top tables or, you know, very vertically focused online properties, we're seeing, you know, big increases in that traffic through our own application, which is encouraging for us in terms of, you know, building back, you know, our relationship with SMEs in that space through the mobile growth.
Jerome, do you have a point of view on local for your business?
I always have a point of view where that's relevant. It's a different matter. Local for us is a challenge commercially. So what we'd rather do, but we also know that that's not always good for user experiences, we'd rather deal with national suppliers who can provide locally because you get a much better bang for your sales buck.
Sure.
If you want to deal with local advertisers who are all going to give you a very tiny little bit of money, then the only way we see that work is self-serve. But we also know, you know, the Google model is a self-serve based model, but users still find it complicated. However simple you make it, they still, you know, have a resistance to turn on to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we find it a real conundrum to make local work because we know it's good for users, but how you commercialize that is a different matter altogether.
I mean, this is still one of the biggest challenges that I see talking to a multitude of advertisers across section is this SME is the pot of gold for most advertisers. You know, if there's 1 million, there's 3 million, there's 7 million, it grows all the time. We're not quite sure how many SMEs there truly are, but I know most businesses are going after SMEs. The question is, you know, do they want to really manage 10 different relationships, 20 different relationships? That's the difficulty. There's only a certain pot of money. How does everybody get a piece of that money? And how does the SME still get value and, you know, get value for the advertising and grow their business, which is really what the key is. Strip it all away. We're all here to try and help out, you know, businesses to grow and to make money so they can obviously grow alongside us. So how does that challenge play out?
The biggest challenge that we have with the real small businesses is that they are not very rational in their advertising spend. You know, they don't really measure their return on investment, and actually the moment that they get very good return on investment, they're sort of booked out. You know, the most frustrating thing that we recently had is with a clone of Approved Index in the Netherlands. We got a glowing testimonial back from one of our customers who did website design, who said, you know, the experience was fantastic, the customer service was great, I've got 2 orders out of it, and now I'm booked full for the next 8 months, so, you know, I don't need to advertise with them anymore. So it's that sort of thing that you deal with when you deal with small local companies. That's for us a challenge.
Philip?
I think I don't quite agree on their lack of measurement of their return on investment. I think, you know, one of the things we see, and we talk to, you know, obviously thousands and thousands of small businesses every day, and the census data that we've done, some of the other profiling work that I showed earlier, you know, there's a spectrum here, and there are very, very large numbers of these people who are, you know, pretty sophisticated at how they judge where they put their money. I mean, even the guy I showed up there, who, you know, the toe dipper didn't look the most sophisticated business. You know, but this is someone who is trying things, seeing if they work, understanding how much he's spending on them, and trying to find the mix of things that work for his business. And so, you know, to Russ's question, you know, I think, you know, as you know, the search behavior and the media opportunities have become so fragmented for these businesses, one of the things that they are looking for is simple solutions. And so, you know, increasingly one of the things that we're trying to do is actually just to put together, you know, very, very simple solutions for these small businesses that tackle one of the principal issues we see in unlocking, you know, revenue and growth potential for small businesses, which is how they manage their content, how they generate their content, and how they use that to profile themselves online. I mean, the other thing is that when you look at this marketplace, often they don't think of it as media spend. They really don't. You know, and some of them look at it, and you know, websites, for example, which, you know, because they won't all track it like that, will be a fundamental source of business for those businesses. They won't consider that a marketing investment. They'll consider that, you know, potentially, you know, a budget that I had to invest in to build myself a shop window online. And when you look at it in that context, there are pots of gold, obviously, in the SME space, huge. I think that, you know, the challenge in unlocking it is presenting them with something that is very simple in terms of how they generate and manage content for their business, and showing them a path to how they can profile themselves across a very, very fragmented media landscape. That's what I think is the real challenge in terms of unlocking the revenue potential of the SME base.
Yeah. Duncan, you're in a slightly different. You want away from the advertiser in a sense because you're the distribution for that. How do you see it playing out?
We have been, but I think Oodle Pro is our foray into that marketplace.
Okay.
Our perspective is we see businesses spending two things. One is money, which is increasingly lead-based, a very fragmented and very competitive marketplace in which Google has lots of significant advantages just because of its size. I think the other side of it, they spend time. And what small businesses spend their time on is managing their reputations to try and get referrals. And then our perspective on it is social media, and I'm just echoing what I said earlier, presents small businesses a way to manage their reputations and generate business off the back of it. And I think there's going to be a suite of tools. Some will come over from the States, some hopefully Oodle will be successful in, which gives businesses a tool set to allow them to do that more effectively. And that's really interesting because they'll pay a monthly fee for that. It decouples your revenues from having to have lots of traffic, which you guys have.
Data management is a core competency, right? So all this does now, all these new touch points for SMEs means increased layers of complexity. It's another 20 websites you've got to be on, right? It's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's wherever else, it's AOL, every other website. So obviously, great revenue opportunity. We will go along and say, for an extra, you can now get on these services, and it obviously means more management. How important is data management for you as a business? Is that a core competency for all of you now? And is that going to be increasingly the problem for SMEs and mid-cap companies to make data the core of what they do?
I mean, the two issues we have with data is the accuracy of it and whether it's truthful. So in our marketplace, we cover all the classified sectors. There's huge issues with trust and safety and scams and inappropriate content, and things like pets. So we have a suite of quite sophisticated filters and technology to help address that. In terms of the data quality, there's only so much we can do with what we've got. I mean, the analogy of shit in, shit out is sort of, unfortunately, what we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So unless the small businesses are prepared to, A, control their data in a way which makes sense, and prepared to distribute the data to people like us, we're somewhat restricted in what they can do. And to be honest, I think a lot of them are quite scared to share more photographs on their property or more details of what they've got to sell because they think people will go to Google and not come to our own site. Right. So unfortunately, Google might be part of a problem in trying to address that and making small businesses feel comfortable. But things like your Square won't actually stop people going to the originator's site.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge challenge. So, I mean, depending on whose statistics you believe, somewhere between 4 to 4.7 million businesses in the UK, somewhere between 4 and 500,000 starting each year, going bust each year, and none of what I've mentioned there takes account of people who are changing their trading status, launching ancillary or subsidiary companies, and so it's a very complex thing. We have about, must be 200 people in the UK who are phoning businesses every day just to do that exercise of, validating and verifying, business details to try and stay on top of that. The whole issue of content comprehensiveness is important, not just from a profile the advertising in the right way, but from a quality and integrity of the search and experience for the consumer. I spoke earlier about, turning or leveraging more of the assets inside the business in a service bureau capacity to actually do a customer service job with the advertiser, where we can take in more content, interview them more about the content of their business, even set up very, very simple things where they can send content in either printed or digital format, and we can process it for them. So it's a huge challenge, but there are two perspectives on it. One in terms of how that business manages its content, keeps it fresh, keeps its profile, well managed across multiple properties, but also in terms of the quality and integrity of the consumer search experience, and you need to be doing both.
Jordan?
Yeah, not an awful lot to add, really. I mean, the real trick is to get users to engage with your website and to upload their own content, to update their own content, to make them feel some sense of ownership, and that is due to delivering them a good experience, marketing programs, all those sorts of things. Managing spine data is a painful and expensive process.
It's tough though, but the rise of businesses like Marchex, like you said, doing this kind of stuff on behalf of other people, it's going to get more next year, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen 2 or 3 of the companies like
Examples,
Marchex
yeah.
who have come with reputation management tools. And we fully expect that to become a mainstream part of what you need to do for an SME moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot more on the plate. So what have you learned from this year individually for your business? It's been a tough year for all of us. We learned to cut back on some things. I think we spent a little bit too much money on some areas. And we learned to tighten up. And I think most businesses kind of grew up this last year with everybody pretty much having a terrible time. We had a terrible first half of the year. Things are getting a little bit better for us. So we're taking lessons going to this year, and actually that experience has helped bring interesting insights into some younger people in our business who've never seen this. And those lessons have been kind of passed on, and hopefully we'll get better and leaner as a business. What is it you learned from 2009, and what are you going to do differently in 2010 that's going to change the way your business operates?
Well, for us to an extent, and that is sometimes very good, it's humbleness. You just have to get back to core, and a lot of people that thought that they were absolutely, king of the world, they have to step back and actually see that they also struggle when the climate gets tougher. The other thing, actually, that I'm really proud of, what we did this year, is we invested an awful lot in our product development. We almost spent an entire year looking into how we're going to get directories to the next stage. How are we going to bring an approved index model together with a telephone tracking model, together with a traditional directory model, and we will launch that early 2010. So what I'm proud of is that we've been able, through the recession and through a pretty tough time, to invest in product development and give us a really good platform for growth in 2010. So that was
Very good.
Hopefully this will be heartening for most people in the room. One of the things that we observed, we had a day quite recently where we had about 1,000 people out talking to multiple thousands of small businesses. And again, pretty anecdotal, but we tried to kind of synthesize the results of those conversations. This is a lot of them feeding back that harsh times in the recession, not that we don't believe in the products, but cash flow for these small businesses is king. And at the moment, it's a very tight climate for them. What we heard repeatedly was every intention to invest, very happy to do that. Just need to see some sign of consumer demand and confidence picking up, which I suppose is encouraging, whether you're in a regional press or Classic Directory or any of the kind of new online businesses. That small businesses are incredibly passionate about what they do, and they are survivors. They are risk takers and they are survivors, and so they're pretty smart and sophisticated about what they do. I think just as an industry, we haven't provided enough of the solutions and enough of the tools to help them cope with a very confused and very complex world. The other thing we've observed this year is a healthy appetite for people to pick up on and take new products and services. So we haven't been, for example, classically seen as the website provider for the small business. That's a huge part of our business, leveraging that service bureau expertise. We launched with Google as an authorized reseller earlier this year, which has been a storming success in terms of the appetite of the small business, presented with a very simple managed service to help them move into the search marketing space, which is new for many of these small businesses. And we're absolutely intent on expanding the total size of the market for search marketing. Ad network, is something that we think has been a huge benefit this year. Many small publisher sites, as well as many advertisers who have found it, the first opportunity for them to really engage with the world of display advertising online. The other thing, and just a final thing to say, is that we've continued to make a big investment in mobile this year, and the Yell mobile application, just in terms of if the search traffic is anything to go by, has been, again, another success for the business. And that's something that I think as we head into 2010, you only got to look at what Hugo was showing earlier in terms of the potential there. We think that's going to be huge for the small business, and we're absolutely organising to be able to help those small businesses take advantage of the mobile space.
Great. Duncan.
The fact that as a startup we're still here, I think is something to be proud of. I think the other thing we took eye off was Google, and the fact that you're making 300 changes to your search algorithm every month sort of makes me feel a little bit scared about trying to keep on top of my SEO. And I think the last point is it never ceases to surprise me that every year something comes from nowhere and encapsulates something. So Twitter was this year, Skype, eBay, etc. And I look forward to seeing what comes next year, because there's something transformational every year. And keep your eyes open and understand those technologies and the impact it has on your businesses.
Okay. Questions from the floor? There must be a few after all these hours. I might have to take the mic to walk around. Now it's the end of the day. There's beers await in 5 minutes. A couple of questions. Got smart people here from different industries. Anybody want to venture? Rob. Do you want to just? Okay.
I just wondered whether this managing of the SME's presence online is just a moment in time, and that's going to disappear fairly quickly as a new younger generation of people who are all used to these tools start up their own businesses and are more than happy to do it themselves.
No, don't think so. In the sense that you're dealing with a very, very broad landscape. So, 4.7 million businesses in the UK. Not all of them are young and in their first couple of years and are used to growing up with this stuff and doing it all for themselves.
Not today, no.
Not today, but then maybe not even in 5 or 10 years' time. You're still going to have businesses that are still confused and struggling and needing help in that space. So I think what will change is that actually the profile online, the language will move probably away from being about the website to being something that's a bit more of an ecology and driven a bit more by social media and driven more by mobile. And so that vocabulary, I think, will start to replace the language of website as the thing I need to have to get me online.
Platform will go away. It will be one thing, really.
Yeah.
Anybody else? No? Any other questions? Just take the mic over. Thanks.
It's a question for Philip. You mentioned one of the things that we're doing this year was to content capture. I'm curious, why didn't you use the term content generation instead? Are businesses passive in their management of content? Are you implementing a pull strategy?
Actually, you'd be surprised at how many small businesses you could go and visit who didn't have collateral that was up to date or hadn't cracked the set of messages and benefits that described their brand or their business. And so in that respect, there's a kind of assistance and support around how we get them to think about their business in terms of how best to profile it. So that's, I guess, where I was going with the language of content generation versus content capture. More readily in the kind of content capture space, if it's a restaurant with a menu or a shop with a catalog, or the photos we take of the business or the video we shoot of the business, that's really what I was referring to in terms of content capture. But no, not everybody in this space has understood how to describe and present their business, and some of them need help doing that.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you to the panel.